Give me a second, I'll get the link, and y'all can just choose if you want to watch it on your console or your phone. Let me know when everyone's ready. Yeah, I invited y'all through the party, and I also sent it in the channel in your Discord. So if for whatever reason you didn't get the party invite, you got the link.
I'm trying to figure this out. How do I cast it?
Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't work sometimes. It like specifically asks me if I want to invite people, and then I do. And then it just doesn't give it to them. You want to watch it on your phone or your PlayStation? Yeah, that's what I would assume.
So what I do is I just...
Let me see. It's in DW coaching. Yeah, I don't know if I can just invite again through the PS. If you want to watch it through your PlayStation, I can give you my name, and you can search for it.
I got it. I got it, Lane. We are casted to the television. Oh, no. Twilight. I'm pretty sure J-Dog is on Twilight. Yeah, I am.
It's literally my name. Can you see? Do you see the link in DW coaching? Okay, so that's my name. So just type that in, and it's very unique. I'm sure you'll be able to find it. No. My name. Dalen Valentine. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure no one else is gonna have that, so you shouldn't have a problem. Yep, that's what my mom gave me.
Dalen Valentine sells treasures around the way.
I'm gonna change my real name to Strawberry, and then I'll just be a true stripper.
Yeah, for real. It's like you're like a video game NPC, you know? Don't forget to stop by Dalen Valentine's store to get what you need before your mission. Like, it's fucking perfect. It's probably because you're Nick Valentine's kid. Fallout, yes. Tank, did you literally just comment, who's this? It's you, buddy.
Did you figure it out, Dimples? Awesome. Is everyone ready? Yeah, you're good. Yeah, the delay is a little bit. I'm sorry. Okay, so most of what we're going to do here is I'm not going to focus for the most part on anyone individually. For like, more like specific individual things, again, get with me, let's do a VOD review together, etc. For this, I'm going to start working with you guys on like team-based concepts, right? So we're going to start slow, and then we're just going to start, working on these things consistently across the board until, we just get them down, right? So for this one, we're mostly working on just like what our position should be determined by our comp, right? Like what we're running, what our goals are of that comp, in the enemy comp, etc. Maximizing our value, understanding our role, all that jazz. So, typically, obviously this changes depending on like the comps that you run, but typically like a pretty normal, like brawl-based comp, you're gonna have, your tanks who should typically play together. You're going to have like an anchor and then an off-angle DPS, which basically means like your anchor DPS will, stay near cart, stay near supports, and kind of be there for peeling. And then you'll have your other DPS, which will again cover off angles, both in terms of peeling and pressuring the enemy. And then your supports, again, they just need to know their role and who they need to be helping at all times. Going through the first fight on y'all's attack, y'all red team, I think that y'all did pretty well, actually, on first, because they have a bastion, right? And tank does a really good job at pressuring the bastion from afar, and we get that kill on him pretty easily, which is great. And our tanks start pushing together, which I like. Yeah, both on your first attack and your second attack, I thought that y'all's first take, your first point take was very smooth, which is good. Some teams struggle with that, so that was really nice. What I will say is, after first is when I start having issues. Now, I'll tell you the good things that you guys do, but obviously I'm going to work on a lot of the negative things, right, and tweaking those. Please don't get offended. If you have any questions and you want me to explain something a little bit better, that's totally fine. But I'm going to shit on you guys a little bit, and we're just going to have to take that. So the first thing that I want to mention, and I mentioned this in game, is that our tanks need to take space here, right? Like you notice that like your Sigma's already pushing up a little bit, right? Which is good. But your Rhine's sitting on cart, and that's bad. Rhine should never, ever be pushing cart unless it's third point, and it's just kind of like, oh, no, not necessarily third point, but unless the payload is like at the checkpoint, right? Like the payload's coming to the checkpoint, and it makes sense that like your tanks or your Rhine would be close to the checkpoint, right? So it makes sense that he would be the one that was pushing it. In this instance, your Rhine here needs to be pushing up, like a lot up. So that's my first big thing. Really here, I would say Ana would take point, because Ana is, long range. But even Junkrat can take point, right? Because Junkrat is also long range, which we start doing. Like if you notice, like Ana and Junk are on point, which is good. But your Rhine is still just now coming, and because of that, because of your Rhine is taking so long to kind of meet your Sigma up here to push, you'll notice that the enemy team has already repositioned where they want to be for second point, and you haven't taken any space. So, you see like Ashe is already set up on high ground, their team's kind of behind natural cover, and their tanks are taking this corner very aggro, and you guys want to already be at this corner, taking that space, so the card is pushing for free. And what I mean by for free is basically like you want to always like take space for free, right? Like you don't want to have to expend resources to take space or ults to take space, and at the same time you want to force them to use resources to take that space from you, right? So So like if they want this corner right here, which is a very strong position for both teams, you want to force them to use their resources to be able to take that space from you guys. So if y'all pushed up to this corner, the fight wouldn't be happening on payload, right? And then the payload would just keep pushing for free. That's why it's so important in second phase to start staggering kills really aggressively, because the more you stagger and like the less time that they have to touch cart, the more that the payload's just pushing, right? So I really mostly have an issue with where the tanks are this time around. Farah, I think she goes up in a second, starts contesting Ashe. But yeah, Farah should be contesting the high ground, right? Farah is going to be our off-angle DPS in this comp, and Junk is our anchor. So Junk is going to be on cart or near cart, you know, laying down damage on the shield, and Farah is going to be contesting the high ground and pushing them off. We managed to save Rhine, though, which is awesome. I'm not going to go too much into target priority yet, but I will say there's a couple of really egregious moments that I do want to address. And it kind of goes back into, again, like the whole space making kind of idea. Whenever an enemy uses their cooldowns, right? Like for instance in this case, D.Va uses fly to kind of push into you guys, and she lands inside of your team. Now at a higher elo, that's totally feeding, right? Like that D.Va has just fed her brains out and fed 600 HP worth of ult charge because they're inside of a team. Y'all just kind of ignore the D.Va. And you should be taking this. Again, this is like a free kill for you guys, right? Because she ends her boost in there, and all you have to do right now is literally just focus her, and she's dead. And that's a free, easy kill. Instead, like, I think Ryan was just kind of swinging at her, and no one else looked at her, and she gets out. Farah does a good job at pushing Ashe off of high ground. We're starting to push up, which is good. The nano is good. Ryan's getting in there. Farah flanked for a barrage, which I like. And we clean up pretty well. So it does work out. But all in all, like you don't wanna give them those opportunities to touch. You know, you want to push as much as possible without feeding, of course. Okay, second thing. Okay, so I like the idea here with our DPS. Like, I think, again, our Rhine's fine, our Sigma's pushing up a little far, but it's okay. I'm trying to find, I don't know where, I don't know, there she is, okay. Arana's in the back, that's fine. I like what our DPS are doing here, I just wish they would have done it faster, right? Junk, if you'll notice, is on the castle side. He's clearly waiting for Tyre. I wish that he was still pressuring the paths that they're coming out. I noticed that our Junk in particular, whenever he is Tyre, he tends to just hide. And sometimes that works out right, you know, if you can just hide and then they push and you can just instantly pop it. But a lot of times when you're hiding to get your ult off, you're leaving your team down a person, right? And in a case like this where you're really wanting to pressure them as they're coming out, like you can lose a lot of damage that way, where Junk needs to be, I mean, Junk really thrives in pressuring these different sides. You know, because they have such a hard time pushing through that spam. But Junk's over on the right, and I like that our Farah does think to kind of go over on the left. Like, typically you want your DPS to be on opposite angles of each other, because it forces, like, their tanks, for instance, and just people in general, it forces them to choose, like, which one they're looking at, and they can't deal with both, typically, and you're splitting their team, so I like that. The only thing I wish is that I wish our Farah would have went to the left a little bit sooner and taken that angle, because Mercy is forced to fly a little too late, and that's why she gets caught out by the bomb. But other than that, I thought, again, that you guys' thought process was good here. Fortunately, the Tyre is big. We still have our Ana in the back, you know, having big heals. Y'all managed to clean up, which is great. I thought your first attack, first point and second, was overall good. A couple things that I would tweak, but nothing, you know, too egregious. Here's where things start getting messier. First thing I don't like is our Ana. I think you're too close. Okay. If you notice, you're on the right side of the payload, and you don't have a lot of natural cover, which is why not necessarily natural cover. You don't have a lot of good sight lines here. I like that you're sort of taking the payload as cover, but I think that you can do it in a better way, especially because you're now unable to see your Rhine because he's holding on the left. So that you need to communicate. This is really important as healers. You need to communicate with your tanks a lot of the time. That whether or not you can see them, how low they are. Do they need to come back? Do you've got them? Can they push? And things like that. You're clearly like trying to heal Rhine right now, but you can't really see him, and you have to reposition. Where in reality you should be holding about here, like behind the payload a little bit, especially since your tanks are holding right there. Like they can push cart for now, and they can start rolling it into third. Second thing I'll say is that if you notice, like our Rhine when he's low kind of like steps up onto like this little, he does this a couple of times this game, I don't understand why. He steps up on the stairs right here, and your team always gets punished for it, like every time. And as Rhine, like you need to make sure that you're in a position where you're helping your team. Like if you need a backup for heals, that's fine. Back up behind the payload, back up behind natural cover. Typically as tanks you want to like go corner to corner, right? Like that's your goal, is just I'll take this corner, then I'll take this corner, and just like be really strong in that. And you always, I notice both tanks will kind of move off to the side a lot when they're low, and they put themselves away from the team. And in this case with Rhine, when you put yourself away from your team, you're opening them up to get shattered. And I don't think we blocked a single shatter in this game, and it's really sad. Unfortunate Sigma ult, but I'm not gonna get into it. It happens. Okay. Again, just a small thing. Ryan, you gotta respect the enemy. Those are just things that you have to think about. Anytime, and this is true for every role, not just tank. But you always have to think about what the enemy has, right? If they have a McCree, you know that they're gonna stun you. Especially if you're Reinhardt, he's gonna look to stun you all the time. So it's unfortunate you lost Shatter there, and that's just looking for those abilities. I also think that oh, where are we? Okay, yeah, we back up here, which is good. Let them waste Bob. Okay. Again, not going too much into the individual things, but I see this a lot with Reinhardt's, and I have to comment on it. You don't need to charge into the enemy to get value. You just don't. Like you can just walk forward, swing. Obviously, if you can get a pin, confirm pin, that's fine. But typically, you want to try to pin into your team or into a wall. You don't want to take these long pins because you'll notice that it opens you up to a lot of damage, and then you're not protecting your team. Yeah. And then you just die. And then you can't block the high noon. Your team doesn't have Rhine. The Rhine can kind of just do what he wants with you guys. Those are great picks. Good heals. Sigma, I liked your shielding a lot there. Again, if you notice, just real quick, Rhine, like, for whatever reason, walks up these stairs again on the left. I don't know why. I don't know why we're walking up that way. You're literally not helping anyone there. There's no reason to do that. And if they do have the Rhine there, or they have, hit scan that are actually, like, pushed up and, pressuring you guys, you're just opening up your entire team to damage. Don't do it. Same thing there. Ryan, you're just swinging through Grav. You don't need to swing. You need to shield. You need a hard shield right there. so your team doesn't take damage. Okay, in this instance, since we switched to McCree, I would say that Junk, normally you've been like holding back, which has been good. You've been breaking shield and pressuring them, which is awesome. Now that we have McCree, really both of them can do this, but I would say that McCree is going to be the new like anchor DPS, right? Especially because they have a tracer, so he's the one that's going to be holding back a little bit, playing inside the healers and putting pressure, on their flankers or whatever, which is good because that's what tank does here. And then Junkrat, that means that you can push up a little bit more, keep breaking shield, but you can take those off angles if you need to. It's good. We take the next corner. This is the second target priority thing that I'll mention because again it's egregious. We accidentally booped the McCree into our team. I know he gets a kill, but then we just kind of like let him sit here for like a long time. Like our tanks are like really pushing up and very aggro and clearly not aware of this McCree in our backline. And again, a better McCree that's uncontested will kill you. He will just completely fuck you guys up. So if your tanks aren't aware of it, y'all need to call that shit, right? I noticed a lot when I was listening to your comms that, and they were okay at times. You guys were getting better, but a lot of times, we weren't calling these things. We weren't calling flankers. We weren't calling, people that were killable, especially when they're inside of us and free. Like this McCree right now is half health, and no one's looking at him. As a support, that should scare you, and it should make you mad that your tanks aren't looking at him. Like, it takes way too long for anyone to look. You see, like, he's still walking around inside of you guys before Zarya finally turns back and helps. So whether that was called and no one listened, or it wasn't called, like, just scream about it until it happens. What I'll say here is, at this point, right, like I talked about earlier, again, like Ana or Junk or whoever, is on cart, that's totally fine whenever you're at like the beginning of a point, and your tanks are pushing up. But when it gets this close to a checkpoint, like your tanks are obviously going to be playing around the checkpoint area, so they're going to be contesting cart. So Ana, right now, you should not be shattered. You should not be this far up. There's little reason for you to be on cart here. You're just setting yourself up to take the damage that your tanks are tanking. And you don't have 600 health, right? You don't have 500 or however much health your tanks have. So there's no reason for you to get shattered right here. When instead, as Ana, you should be playing like more, around natural cover, or a little bit, further in the back, right? Like either way would work, as long as you're around a corner or you're just further back and you're not taking the damage that they're doing. And you die because of that. And then your Zarya dies. She gets pinned, and you can't nade her. Unfortunately, your Mercy gets stuck. The crazy thing is that your team keeps getting picks. Like, Tank is putting in a lot of work as McCree. Your Junk is helping spam things, and I honestly think that if our Ana or our Mercy had lived there, that we could have won that. I think our like, for instance, we also saw, I forgot to mention, our Ryan at one point dove into the back line, which again, don't do that. Don't charge into the back line. It's not necessary. And then our Mercy followed him. Our Mercy followed him all the way into the enemy back line, and mind you, he was full health. Our Ryan was completely full, he was fine, and our squishies were suffering in the back, and our Mercy went in. That's again another thing as in know your role. If you have an Ana, your Ana is going to heal your tanks. Sometimes, yeah, if your Ryan is hemorrhaging health in front of you, sure, you can come over and flutter over to him and start healing him as Mercy. But 9 times out of 10 as a Mercy, you should be with your DPS or your other support, and you should be damage boosting your DPS or healing your support or healing whoever. You should not be touching your tanks, and you definitely should not be putting yourself into the line of fire to go and save your Reinhardt. If he's charging into the enemy. That's his fault, right? And you don't need to die for other people's sins. You just don't. Okay, that's just, you know, they're using ults. I don't have an issue with that fight. The only thing I could say there is, you know, we should be ult tracking and maybe we don't group up, right? When they have grav so much. But it happens. They needed to get it off, and I'm not gonna really bitch at y'all for that. I will say, tank, as McCree, I like that you are, you know, focusing the Tracer and then pressuring her. It's awesome. Okay, another shatter that we don't block. It's a good Valk though. It's a good nano. You see the Zarya over here? You see how Zarya's still in your backline and she's still to the left of you guys? And she's half health, and I'm sure she's used bubble. This shouldn't happen, right? This is another egregious target priority moment. I understand that your Rhine is nanoed and he's pushing their Rhine in, and that's fine if he needs to focus on the front line. I'm fine with Rhine almost always focusing on the front line. Rhine doesn't really need to peel. But the rest of you, like Junkrat, you know, Zarya, for instance, y'all should kill this Zarya. Hands down, absolutely, 100%. She should not make it out of here. We do start focusing her a little bit too late, and she gets back to her team, right? Junk there, you should have just gone for the grav. You kind of hesitated a little bit. Zarya's still alive. It's crazy. But we clean up the kills. Our DPS are doing a lot of work, which is awesome. You'll definitely are getting the kills that you need, so I'm not mad at that. But I think that y'all got that point because people popped off, and not because of target priority or positioning. A lot of the things I notice is that I think that everyone, and this is true for every team, you know, gets to the point where people are just playing their own game, you know, and they're taking their own 1v1s, and, you know, sometimes they pop off and they do really well, but, you know, like, the whole point of this is that we can coordinate together as a team, and we can make those, like, crazy chaotic fights that, you know, work half the time. We can make sure that they are less chaotic for us and that they're working, like, 75% of the time, right, or 100% of the time. Okay. Same thing here. Y'all are running, wait, I started with on attack, which is fine. You have a lot of spam, which I like, you know, a lot of shield break. Again, Junk, you're going to be more of the anchor, you know, and Farah, you're going to be more of like the off-angle DPS, which y'all start doing. You know, Farah's already pressuring them, Junk's in the back spamming, you know, choke, so that's totally fine. But I do have severe issues with how this fight goes. Y'all get rolled here. Okay, so here. We are out of position, okay? Zarya is taking a slight kind of off angle. And I don't normally have an issue with your off tanks taking off angles. I think it's important that off tanks take off angles, as long as they're near their Rhine, which you are. The issue is the way that you're doing it, because, like, for instance, if they push you, which they do, what are your options? Like, where are you going to go, right? Because if you go right, especially if you go right, like, they're going to push you, and then your team can't see you. And if you go back, like, to your team, which you can do, they might not be able to help you in time because you're going to take a lot of damage here. But the bigger issue that I have is with Rhine. He loses some health and he backs up to this corner, which is okay. But the decisions he makes after that are questionable for me because he's starting to get healed right and he keeps backing up, and I don't know why he does that. I'm assuming he's scared of the Farah. But you don't want to back up. And if you do want to back up, it's okay if you want to, but you have to communicate that with your off tank or whoever else is up there. And there's clearly a disconnect in communication because your Zarya stays and your Rhine keeps backing up, and so Zarya gets punished for that. So again, I don't necessarily have a problem with either of y'all's decision making individually, but as a team, right? It's not coordinated. You either stay strong and you take that space at the choke, or you back up together. But you don't leave each other like that. The other issue I have is Anna. I don't like that you're over here at all. Again, there are times where Anna can take an off angle, right, and get like a fat nade, or you're kind of like obviously out of sight for now. The issue is that like they have a lot of opportunity to push you here. Like A, if they push through choke, they can instantly see you, and or B, if someone flanks right here, like you're just fucked. And you'll notice that like you stand there, and then your Zarya gets fucked, and everyone starts backing up, but you feel pressured, and so you try to walk in front of the entire enemy team, and you just die. And that's such a misplay. And it's just every death should show you like I was out of position here, right? Like what can I do better next time to not be out of position? And in that instance, you probably should have, played on the right side, right? Because you can play on this right side, and literally none of them can get to you, and you can just kind of play around this corner and still hear your tanks that were at choke, right? And that way when they start pushing, you can back up to like the next corner or the next natural cover. And that's basically it for this fight. Next thing I'll say is Zarya, there was no reason for you to touch point there. Your team had died. There's no way for you to stall that, right? And you hadn't committed yet to coming, right? You hadn't committed yet to pushing, so they didn't even know you were there. You could have just taken that time to back up and regroup with your team, but because you pushed onto point and just instantly died, you get long spawn. And that's a big reason why I think that you guys get rolled on this next phase, because you are so far back that you can't help your team. So that's just like a small decision, right? It seems like a small decision when in reality, like it was really big. Like you can't help the rest of your team. Second thing I'll say is this is such a messy fight. It really is. Second thing I'll say is that you guys are way too pushed up for having just lost Zarya. Normally, right? Like you want to take this corner. Like if you guys had a full regroup and they were still pushing cart, this would be fine. But you notice how I talked about before, that like tanks need to push up, DPS need to like take high ground or take different angles. That's what they're doing right now, and it's very effective. Their Rhine's taking this corner, right? So he's pressuring your Rhine, and both their Pharah and their McCree have already taken high ground. Anna, you just killed their Pharah, which is great news. But now their McCree has high ground, and he's just like looming over you guys, and he just starts fucking you up. So what I would have done in this instance, whenever you lost Zarya and you're down a person and they're already starting to take high ground and take positions on you, is I would back up. I would either go through castle if you're already out here, or I would go back over the bridge and I would go and meet up with Zarya, right? And then I would go up top through the castle. Okay. Anytime that people are on high ground and you're attacking or defending, but like the enemy is taking high ground, especially if it's a DPS, I would literally come over here as a team and I would take high ground and I would push them off. You always want to push hit scan off of high ground. Sometimes your DPS can handle it themselves, right? But sometimes they can't, and sometimes you need like the big bad shield coming up there to kind of like help scare them. If you don't do that, like Junk and at the very least McCree and Mercy should be up there. Like that's like the perfect scenario, is that your tanks can kind of hold that corner and your DPS can sit on high ground and deny them that space, and pressure them. But we don't do that, and instead we're all on low ground and we just get fucked for it. So this is just something that you guys need to think about. High ground is so important, contesting it. You just notice how much value they're getting because they have that advantage over you. Okay. Yeah, this right here is messy. You guys need to back the hell up.
Also, will you pause it for a second so I can tell you something?
Yeah.
Okay, so, you know that platform that's sticking out where at the very bottom of underneath the bridge to the...
Yep.
Okay, so earlier today when I was watching the New Republic and Order 66 game, the New Republic went underneath, like, because they're attacking. They went underneath, put a teleporter on that platform, we're almost under the bridge, and went behind them and fucked them up.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
should
it's
try
good.
that sometime.
Yeah, that'd be cool play. Yeah,
I
I
just don't
saw.
know what's good with attack with Symmetra on a map like this.
Yeah, I typically wouldn't run Symmetra on this, but I mean, again, like if it works, it works. You know, like especially at this elo, y'all can make anything work. And like Tank, for instance, used that earlier on the first attack when he used Farah and used that to go behind and barrage. And yeah, I love that little flank if you can do it, for sure. Okay, somehow y'all fucking touch here. Sorry, good job. I honestly didn't think you were gonna make it. And then we get the kills, which is great. I do remember this specifically. I had to call out that the Zarya was still alive. Please watch the kill feed. We took so long to see her up there. Okay, here, real quick, I want to talk about where I would like you guys to stand, and then we'll go and see where you actually stand. So in this instance, I like that, Soldier, that you have the idea to go on high ground, right? 9 times out of 10, I'll tell you to contest high ground. If you're obviously someone like, you know, a hit scan or whoever, you know, that does well up there. In this instance, I don't think it's beneficial, because like, if you go up there, you don't have a lot of sightlines on the enemy, and they've already also taken the high ground, and if you start walking up there, which is exactly what happens, and the Farah is already there, which she is, she's just going to wreck you from that range. You know, like, Farah really excels against hit scan at close range and dive bombing. In this instance, I would have Soldier and Mercy actually sit on cart. And because, like, if you, for instance, if you look here and you're Soldier, like, you have a lot of sight lines on them. You can see if they're coming main, you know, towards the bridge. You can see if they're flanking in the castle, and you can also see if the Farah, you know, starts, like, looming over in the sky, and you have the Mercy with you, and so you're really not pressured very much. You don't need the high ground in this instance. Anna and the tanks, I would probably put more, you know, towards this side of the bridge, so you can start looking main, and start, you know, waiting for them to come up. And you can also rotate back to point if they do go through castle pretty easily. And you don't necessarily need to be up there with them. Like, you can also kind of sit near point, or you can even sit back here, you know, somewhere, so you can see your tanks over there and whatever. But and then Junkrat, I would sit in castle, most likely. What happens, though, is everyone kind of sits on cart, which, again, I don't like. Anytime you contest right here, right, and then you push them back and you're waiting, I see a lot of low-level teams that will just, like, sit on cart, and the idea is like, oh, I don't want them to back cap, I don't want them to push cart in, you know, etc., etc. But, like, if you think about it, like, Ryan and Zarya, like, you're not doing anything here, right? Like, you're literally not able to do anything, especially if they go main, because you're just kind of sitting here. And, like, if they do go main, for instance, that means you're giving this entire bridge and everything else, like, for free, right? If they decide to go main. Like, you're giving them so much space because you're just, like, sitting on cart like you're scared. So there's no point. I always push up. Always. Take a corner, you know, make them fight to touch payload, right? You never want to take fights on point if you can help it, so that they, again, have to expend resources to even get to payload, okay? It typically buys you time, it means they have to expend those resources, which means you have more resources, etc. And again, like I said, our soldier does go to high ground, but Farah comes behind him and kills him, which is unfortunate. I would say that that's not a bad res. I like that you take cover for this res. My issue with this res is that Farah's still there, and if you notice, this is another thing, again, I don't want to go too much into the individual things, but it really bothers me. I feel like your Ryan is super selfish this game. If you notice, like, your Ryan is shielding himself. He's also shielding, I guess, the rezzing soldier, or like, you know, like the soldier that's reviving right now, but he's not shielding his Mercy, who's the one that needs help, and that just really bothers me. Help your team. Don't just shield yourself. Like, your Mercy didn't need to die there. Yeah, and that's second. So, again, everyone was kind of out of position. I know that one's a little bit trickier. It's hard to know exactly where to stand in those moments, but you gotta think about, like, you know, where the enemy excels and where you excel, and maximizing, you know, the space that you're taking, while minimizing, you know, their value. Risky charge. Oh, okay. Next thing I'll say. Another individual thing. Soldier, I love it. I love that you're on high ground here in the back. You know, you have a lot of great sight lines there, especially against the Farah. Love that. My main issue is with Junk right now. Junk, I know that you're hiding for a tire. Unless you're going to tire pretty quickly, right, when they start pushing in, do not hide to ult. Don't do it. Alright? It just means that you're leaving your team without that person, right? Without the value that you can bring to a team. You can literally, like, instead, you can sit in the back like you normally would and spam shield and, you know, bait out those bubbles and pressure their supports and make them kind of struggle to get to your tanks. That way when they get to your tank, they're not at full health and they don't have full shield and they don't have bubbles and they're not just gonna bulldoze your Rhine. Like, Junkrat, you are really the main deterrent against their brawl right now because you can just lay so much damage into them and you're leaving your team without that source of damage for a long time. I'll say the same thing about Rhines that flank shatter. Sometimes it works, and I don't have a problem with it when it happens pretty quickly, and you're just hiding, and then you pull it off pretty quickly, and your team's aware of it. But a lot of times, and this is mostly when the enemy team has shatter, a lot of times I'll see Rhines when the enemy team has shatter, and again, you should be ult tracking. I'll see Rhines like, oh, I'm gonna flank shatter, and so they flank for like 30 seconds, and then their team gets shattered, and they're like, well, what happened? Well, it's because you weren't there, right? So again, you know, think about like the value that you're bringing to your team. We have to use, we use Visor, we use Nano, we use our tank ults. Like, that's a lot of ults for that. I think your team bills you out there, Junk, with 4 ults. Right, they needed 4 ults to kill him because they didn't have your damage. Like, you really want to make them work for that space. It's a great tire. I love that tire. Like, you were participating, right? You were, see, it's such a difference. You're participating in that team fight, like, as they were walking through, so they were, like, using bubbles, they were getting, you know, weak on shield. And then whenever they started using ults, like Shatter, and you realized your team was in trouble, you used it as a reactionary thing, and you cleaned house. It was awesome. So that's exactly what you need to do. That's unfortunate. It's unlucky. Yeah, this is just a lost fight. They got some lucky kills. It's a good pin, it's a good shutdown. Unfortunately, we stand in Dragon. Okay. Here, again, this is what I notice from our tanks a lot. Like, notice that, like, for instance, Zarya, you're taking a lot of damage, obviously, because you were kind of frontlining because your Rhine wasn't back yet. Just fine, you know, you're pushing them back. But when you get low, you come over here. Sometimes, you know, middle of the fight, if you need to, like, duck behind cover real quick, that's fine. But when they're aggressing pretty quickly, especially when you don't have your Rhine, don't go away from your team. It makes it really easy on them to A, grab your team, but also B, it makes it really easy for them to punish you. Most of the time, your heals, at least at this level, aren't going to be able to bail you out of that situation, and you're just separating yourself when you don't really need to. Same thing, like Ryan, I don't know why Ryan is over here, right? Like, he comes out really strong, but he needs to come out where he's near his team so he can start shielding them. I don't think that your Ryan really thinks about his team so much. He's thinking about, like, the plays he can make, but he's not always successful in those plays, so it doesn't work. They got grabbed, and right now you should be shielding your team. I know you just got back from spawn, so I know you have shield. And you could have saved your team from a lot of damage. Whereas, like, you shattered into the grav, which is fine. Like I like that y'all tried to make a play there, but the rest of your team died because they're squishy. I think that you could have waited to blossom, or done it earlier. But it was either too late, or, you know, you should have just waited. It's a good nano, though. I like the nano, for sure. It's a great tire. Here, again, this is kind of a small thing. Reaper should not be frontlining right now, and Zarya should be pushed up. The moment y'all get 2 picks like that, you should understand that you have the advantage and you need to push. So, Zarya, you should be pushing. You should be at the front right now. I'm not saying, like, go feed, or, you know, you have to get these kills, but you should definitely be leading the charge here. You should be getting more aggressive and being, you know, dominant, especially since it looks like you have about 100 energy. And Reaper is too aggressive, right? Especially against a pocketed Hanzo. Like, if he hits that one shot, like, you're dead. That's it. Sorry, you're way too far back. Now that your team's back, I'm fine. I'm fine that you're taking this corner, but you're still backing up. I don't know why you're backing up right now. I know you're here, so if you have a reason for me, that's awesome. I'd love to hear it, but, like, you don't need to. I know that, like, their team's coming and you're waiting on Rhine, but your Rhine's almost there. You can take this corner, right? Like, this is your corner. Unless they force you out of this corner, you don't have to back up. Especially at full health and your team behind you, it's not necessary. Still, like, your Rhine's back right now. I don't know why you're so far back. I also don't know why our Rhine's backing up either. I think you guys are giving them, like, a lot of space for free. Just like I said before. They didn't really have to use any resources to push you away from that corner, right? They're mostly full health. The Rhine's lost a little bit of health, right? Your Rhine's full health right now, and he has mostly full shield, and he's backed up to cart. There's no reason to do that. Especially since you're Valking. You're Valking right now. We should be pushing. Same thing, like, because your Rhine's so far back and everyone's backing up and you sit here, Zarya, that's why you die. Unfortunate. Extra unfortunate. Yeah. Yeah, y'all gave them the space there. Like, if they had ults, right? You'll lose this. I'm not gonna watch it. If they had ults and you're worried about those ults, you want to take the fight at this corner. You want to force them to take that fight early, okay? Especially if they have something like grab or shatter or whatever the case may be. You want to make them use those ults early, right? Because then they have to expend those resources early, and it means that they're not on cart when they do it. So if they kill y'all here, they team wipe y'all here. That means that they still have to walk all the way over here to cart, you know, before they can even start moving it, which gives you time to respawn. It gives you time to regroup. It gives you time to, like, you know, build your ults a little bit more. 9 times out of 10, you don't want to take the fight on cart. I know that the cart feels like home base, kind of, right? And so, you know, you feel more comfortable holding on cart, but you want to take the fight ahead of cart for so many different reasons. But the main reason is that you're giving yourself more time and you're forcing them to use those resources and those ults early. Because like I said, like, I mean, they ulted you here, right, where cart was, and so once they team wipe you there, they literally just have to push it in, right? They just have to push it like a few feet or, you know, a few feet or a few meters, you know, in, and that's it. That's exactly what happens. Now, that's not saying don't back up when you're low, when they're pressuring you and you're starting to get low health. You know, like, sorry, if you were pushed up on that corner and I started pressuring you, you know, like, then you come behind your right shield a little bit, you come behind that corner, you get healed, you know, all that jazz, and then you can kind of push back up a little bit. So definitely, if you get pressured, yeah, absolutely, you know, move back to the next corner, to the next natural cover, move back to your healers a little bit. But don't preemptively back up, both of you tanks, just because they're aggressing on you. You know, you guys are the front line. You're the first defense. Okay, our second attack, you run, I think, the same thing that you did the first time, which is completely fine. Great picks. Push that Rhine. Awesome. Again, your first point take on both attacks is very strong, which is great. Y'all don't get stalled at all. So I like that. Okay, my next issue. Sigma's still on point at this point. Shouldn't be on point. You don't need to take cart. You know, let your heals take cart. Junkrat, same thing. Like, I think at this point, Junk should probably be contesting, and or Moira. I know that, like, Moira doesn't obviously have as much range as Ana, and so it's harder for her to heal while she's in cart, in which case I would argue that Junk should be in cart because he can spam from far away, but I also know that he's getting close to tire, and he might want to set up for that. But either way, one of y'all should be on cart, if not both, because you can do things from range, right? Sig, you should be pushing with your Rhine. Now, what I will say is that Rhine kind of took the advice of, you know, push up, and he did that, but he pushed up and charged into the enemy alone. Somehow, by the grace of God, he doesn't die. I don't know how. Fortunately, we bail him out, but definitely a risky charge. But here's where I kind of have an issue, is that we back up so far, like, we're not taking space anymore. We kind of had the idea, but then we're all on cart. Like, Sig's still on cart, Ryan's still on cart. I know it's OT, guys. I know you guys are scared. OT is always a crazy time where people are stressed and they don't know what to do, and it's rough. But it's the same thing as the time before, always. Take space. Tanks need to push up. At least push past the gate and start, like, pressuring them, because both times on their defense, they've had time to set up on this corner very strongly. Ash Mercy's up here, you know, the rest of their team's on this corner. Like, they were able to take that for free completely. And your tanks are still, like, being scared on point. Pharah Mercy at this point should definitely be over the castle. Like, the Pharah as well should not be in point with the Mercy. Y'all should already be over here, right? Y'all should already be spamming on them from, like, above. If you're worried about their hit scan, like, this is a good angle. Or you should be pressuring the Ashe on high ground, because you're really the only person that's going to be able to do that, just like last time. But you shouldn't be shattered right now at all, for sure. And I think this is exactly why you guys lose this point. Again, notice how their hit scan are relatively uncontested. Fair, you did try to contest it, which I appreciate. I just think it was a little bit late, and I don't think Mercy was with you when you went up. Second thing is, like Junk, for instance, you're out of position here. You don't need to be pushed up this high. I think you should be either back on cart, or when they push off of high ground, you should be up top. You know, or playing in the castle or something. But you're on the front line right now for some reason. Sigma, I think you're fine. You know, I think that it's good that you're pushing up and taking space. My biggest issue right now, again, is Reinhardt. I don't know why Rein is pushing cart. Not only, again, does the Rein need to be taking space, but, like, you're not shielding anyone here. Your Mercy still dies, by the way, because you're sitting on cart. Alright, that's my second thing, and that's just an execution thing. You should never be on top of cart, ever. I don't care who you are. Don't be on top of cart. If they have a Rein and they shatter you right now, you get shattered because you're not actually blocking it. Second thing is you're not blocking anyone. Like, you're still, like, your Mercy still dies right next to you because you're not blocking that. Third thing is that you're not shielding the people in front of you because you're supposed to be the frontline pressure. You're supposed to be the 1600 shield that's, you know, out front blocking this high noon, and you're on cart. Again, I know it's OT, I know we're worried about pushing cart, but y'all have to talk about it. Y'all have to say, okay, this person needs to be on cart, you just need to stay there. If they need to get off cart for whatever reason, they need to call that, right? They need to say, I need someone else to hit cart for me, you know, so I can go up and heal, or I can go up and do damage, or get this ult off. That's fine. Y'all can have that level of communication, and y'all can go back and forth, but the conversation needs to happen, and again, unless you're running a bunker, or it's nearing the checkpoint, your tank should not touch cart. Shouldn't happen. And that's why y'all lose that. Tanks, I know I'm beating y'all up a little bit. I'm a tank main, so I'm gonna. And I think tank is the most important role in the game. Sorry, DPS and supports. You guys are important too, but you know, it's just how it is. Okay, so here my first issue is. Let me back it up. I wanna see it. I want everyone to see it. Notice whose shield goes up first at choke. It's Sigma's. Okay. No. Sigma, your shield is used for blocking off angles, right? Like snipers, their hit scan, you know, from different sides. Or it's used to kind of, you know, mitigate damage a little bit, you know, while your Rein's recharging his shield, or obviously to block, you know, little chunks of burst damage. It should not be up first. In no circumstance should your shield be up first. Your Rein needs to put his shield up. It's not just your fault. Rein should also be putting his shield up here. Instead, he backs up. I don't know why he's backed around this corner. I don't know why we're scared right now. You know, at this point in time, we're all full health. We all have our resources, right? I don't know why we're playing scared. Second thing, our Sig dies because our Rein's not shielding him. You notice how, like, our Rein, whenever he comes back and he's repositioning on the left. I don't know if that's to help the supports, but y'all's plan here, if you're getting pushed, is to either, like, you know, come through this right side if that's how you're playing, or you need to back up through this lane and you need to come to this corner. So you should be backing up to the right, both Rein and Sigma. Sigma, you are backing up to the right, but your Rein's not shielding you, and because of that you die. The second thing I'll say is that supports, again, you're out of position. Now, instead of just our Ana being over here, who is BAP this time, our Mercy's also over here. Mercy, again, you don't need to be with Rein right now. If you're going to heal a tank, it should be Sigma. But right now your Ash needs help, and you should be really, really helping your Ash and your Junkrat, be doing a lot of damage here so that their push is slowed. You are very much besides the tanks, you're more of a long-range comp. You want to play slow, whereas their comp wants to play quickly. And to play slow, you need to be putting out a massive amount of damage, and you really need to be helping your DPS. But as far as positioning goes, the supports are really caught out here, and you'll also get punished for it, right? BAP, you have to like jump over, you gotta use Immort. Pretty sure you still die. Yep. And then everyone else dies. So that fight is sheerly a positioning issue on almost everyone's part. Oh yeah, we're missing someone. Oh yeah, Ash. The only thing there, I don't wanna switch it back, but you should have died on cart. I think that you kind of stalled right off of cart a little bit, whenever they were taking it, and then you died, and because of that, you got long spawn. I like that you switched to someone quick to get back, realizing, but I think that you wouldn't have got long spawn if you would have just died on cart, right? Just contested until they killed you, because then they're not building up that meter for free. So, down a person. And we're just getting, again, they're playing this really well. This is exactly how Brawl should be played on second point. You notice how, like, again, their Hanzo's on point. Perfect. Now, because they wiped y'all so severely, they're able to kind of come back, right? And now they can get 3 in cart and just keep pushing it for free. But you see how their tanks push up and take space? That's exactly what y'all need to do. We also, this fight, we go in separately. You notice how, like, Doom comes in first. Then our Junk kind of comes in. Neither DPS needs to be on cart. That's your tank's job. Unless you absolutely have to contest, which you don't. So. Then our Rhine takes a while to do his flank shatter. The whole fight's just really messy. Your Rhine's pushed up so far, so you can't block the shatter or the high noon, and that's it. So, all in all, my main points, right, is positioning, general decision making in terms of positioning and taking space. Space is a weird concept. It's a hard concept to do perfect every time, and it's gonna take some practice. But just, you guys gotta practice that, in terms of, taking corners definitively, tanks taking that space, with the DPS pressuring, like, the high ground, or pressuring shields with you, having someone on cart that's not a tank, making sure that whenever your shield is getting low that you're coming back to natural cover, and helping your team out. Supports making sure that you're playing around natural cover, right? You're not feeding for your tanks, right? Especially if you're Mercy, value your life. DPS for the most part, I thought y'all did well, but there were obviously, a few issues here and there, in terms of decision making, maximizing your value always. Always be putting out damage. Taking opposite angles from each other, helping your tanks, helping your supports, etc. So that's about all I have for this one. Again, there's more I could have gone in depth about, but I like to try to start simple, and we'll work on this for a while until I start seeing, good improvement. Does anyone have any questions?
So I guess summing up, we really just need to work on our call-outs and communication and sticking together.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, even if you're playing Brawl, like, you don't have to be up each other's asses. But, every role has, areas where they thrive, right? Junkrat obviously thrives in, like, closed off, chokes and whatever, etc. But knowing your role and knowing where you need to stand and where you need to push to is super important. And the more that you guys are talking, the the more that you guys can coordinate those things. You know, like if your shield's going low and you're wanting to back up to the corner, you can just say, hey, you know, my shield's low, it's breaking, you know, I'm backing up. And then the rest of your team knows that, and then they know to come with you, right? And no one's getting caught out on those weird off angles. Same thing like supports, you know, if your tank's getting low, and he doesn't realize, you know, you can say, hey, you know, back up, back up, back up, you know, I can't keep you up right there. And then, you know, y'all can kind of get into the groove of things. But, you know, really the thing first and foremost is just kind of building y'all's awareness and knowledge of where you need to stand and what y'all need to be doing.
We also are gonna. I think we need to start working on not like if people don't show up to practice, then they're not gonna play, type thing.
That is not my business.
I know. I'm just saying, like there's a couple of things that we've gone over that maybe some of the other people don't know because they didn't show up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I did post the link. I understand that not everyone can show up, but I will say as far as coaching goes, I coach a couple of different teams, and I mean I'm pretty involved in my other teams, and I mean I know I don't know you guys very well, and I'm not gonna mess around with the management side of things, but I will say I don't like wasting my time. You know, if y'all don't show up and you don't watch these things, and I see like across the board that, you know, half of the team is not improving because they don't care or they're whatever, you're letting your team down. You know, the people that are showing up and that are, you know, making those efforts to get better and coordinate better, you know, you're letting them down, and that's a problem. And I mean, that's something that you guys have to talk about and, you know, figure out, you know, but over time, I mean, you know, y'all will notice those things. Y'all notice who doesn't show up or who doesn't improve, you know, because they're not trying, who doesn't participate in comms, and I'll notice those things, and I will call those things out. I like to be nice, and I absolutely would chat with you guys and be super sweet, but I'm a very no-nonsense person. Glob knows this, and,
Yes.
you know, excuses and you know, arguing and not showing up, like I will call you guys on that shit. You know, I don't like wasting my time, and I don't like seeing other people get fucked over because other people don't care. So I hope that the rest of y'all, you know, everyone watches this. You know, the people that were in, but even for the people that weren't in, you know, like I think it's obviously good. Like for instance, I said a lot about Rhine. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of people on the team that play Rhine. Even if you weren't the Rhine in the thing, I'm sure you can still learn, you know, Rhine things from these things, right?
Oh,
You know,
for sure.
yeah. So.
I was in the Junkrat in that thing, and you said some stuff I need to do too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
There's a little something in there for everyone.
Well, I think our next game is probably going to be Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just talking to the other team now, but I'll try to schedule a couple of scrims this week, if not at least one, so we can get some more VODs for you.
I can help schedule scrims.
Yes, Bean is a scrim machine. Okay.
I mean, I can. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. I know that I'm more free towards the end of the week if that's when y'all do one of them, and I would love to show up and see, you know, how we're improving. So just let me know. I'll check, you know, when you guys are scrimming, but I'll at least show up to one of them hopefully this week. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys.
Everybody go do y'all